Peace. Welcome back to the Voice of Reason show. I'm your host, Skilo Slim, and today we got a very multi-talented guest in the building. So I'm gonna slide it around so that he can introduce himself. What's up, my brother?
Hey.
How you doing, man?
Hey.
Thanks for coming, man.
My name is Darryl Brown. I appreciate you having me on the show, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming.
I guess I don't know about the talented part, but I wear a few hats. I am an adolescent health educator at Charles Drew, so I deal with the 15 to 24-year-olds, providing sexual health education. In addition to that, full-time pastor, author, father, advocate. Just depends on the day of the week.
Exactly. See what I said? Multi-talented. That's a bunch of hats at one time, you know? So, okay. I started reading your book. I don't know, is that where you want to start at? What you want us to
we
know?
can start there.
There.
Right now, this is my passion. This is the burning thing for me. My most recent book, it's my second book. The first one was called Salvation from the Slump. It dealt with overcoming depression, and candidly told my story, and then tied in some biblical principles that I pulled out of a story in Scripture, and then my most recent one, though, is even more candid. It's entitled, I'm Positive, I Forgive You, How I Forgave the Man That Gave Me HIV, which, when I say candid, I mean very candid. First of all, the fact that I, as a pastor in this small city of Omaha, admitted to the fact of a same-sex relationship, in addition to admitted to the fact that I'm HIV positive, and then discuss my full journey towards forgiveness with the man that gave it to me. So it was a struggle in the sense of the fear of what my family would have to endure. It really wasn't a struggle for me per se. I know who I am. I know where I stand. Right. I know what I bring to the table. I know what work I do well, what work I don't do well. And so it wasn't so much of an issue of me telling the story. It was an issue of I was concerned about the backlash that some of my family may have had to endure, the whisperings they may have had to hear. I know how I can respond. I'm cool with it now. It rolls off my back. But I'm not sure. I wasn't sure about how some of my family would have responded had, the whisperings got back to them.
To them first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, before we talk too much about the book, what have you always wrote, or did you just like one day decide?
So, I actually, if we really be technical, this is my third book that I wrote. I wrote another book some years back that I didn't really do anything with. I shopped it around to some publishers here and there, but it was a little too controversial for the religious side, and it was a little too religious for the secular side. So it didn't quite fit in, and so I didn't do anything with it, didn't think anything of it, but I've always written poetry. I perform poetry here and there, and so I've always been a writer, I guess you'd say, but I just have never. I've wrote for some local magazines as well. I've written for the Omaha Star. So yeah, writing is my thing. I enjoy writing.
Right on. Yeah. That's peace. And I can tell too, because I'm halfway through. I'm a weird person.
Okay.
I read like a bunch of books.
Okay, I understand.
So it's like I started both of them, and I'm about halfway through.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's very, like the way you write it made me feel like a TV show. Like I started reading, I'm sitting on the couch, and then I went and did something, came back, and I'm like, what channel was I watching? And I'm like, hold on, I wasn't really, so I'm like, so it's like, it's very, it grasps you. So is that just something that, that's just you?
So I try to be strategic about it, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that part of it is just a gift. It just is there. I mean, you got to be real particular about where you put this and that, but as far as the telling of the story and how it comes across, it's just a gift.
Yeah, because you're a great storyteller.
I appreciate it, man.
Because, this is like a difference between a writer and a storyteller. Yeah. Like, some people, it's like, okay, the commas are where they're supposed to be, the period is there. Like, I see the tone you were chasing, but you're not grabbing me.
Got you.
So, because, I was very, impressed, because it takes a lot of courage. Like you said, it's okay for you.
Yeah.
and it, you know, that courage that it takes to one, be a pastor and to write like a book like this. Like, was that hard, or did you just decide to just do it?
So the difficulty with that is, it's not as it was not as difficult now as it probably would have been for me, say, 4, 5, 6 years ago. At that time, I was still in a place where I was still very much so trying to be a part of the good old boy club. I think that every field has that. And so even amongst the pastors, I was still in a phase of trying to fit into this and that and be a part of this and that, just to kind of, for lack of a better word, to climb the ladder that they had laid out for what people expect that a pastor is supposed to do and who he's supposed to be. And honestly, once I kind of got over that hurdle, and that probably had a lot to do with the first book, once I got over that hurdle, I just got to a place where I'm like, you know what? It really makes no sense for me to be trying to please a group of people that I may never win their applause to begin with. And so it became more about impact for me. It really was not about those individuals that may have been in power, may have been in this position for long periods of time. It was more so about making an impact. I know that there are health disparities as it relates to HIV in the African American community, and even more particularly in the Black LGBTQ community. I know there are health disparities as it relates to HIV and other STIs. I know that there is a lack of representation of LGBTQ individuals, Black ones in the mainstream media, as well as in the religious setting. They're there in the religious setting, but because of various doctrines and because of past experiences in the church, that just is not a thing that is ever put on Front Street unless it's somebody being critical of it.
Yeah, you're right about that. That's the key right there.
Yeah.
And that's the part that like irritates me. I've been feeling like I've been making it like one of my personal missions is to like get rid of that in our community.
It's there. I mean, well, there's no sense in us lying about it. It's there. It's been there. It's no shade towards anybody's or telling anybody else's storyline, but I mean, a lot of the music that we're in love with from the gospel sect, it is written, produced by somebody the same gender loving. But for one reason or another, they kind of keep that under wraps to be sure not to ruin different opportunities for themselves in the gospel arena. And I just made up my mind that those weren't tables that I was interested in eating at. Let me just do it over here. And in some areas, build the table if I need to. As Tyler Perry said, we prepare my own table. So I have made up my mind, and I believe it is just a call and a mission for me to represent and to open my arms to people that are some of the most marginalized in society that more of mainstream religion doesn't really want to deal with. They cast them off to the side, and or they'll offer just a few crumbs, but all right, let's not do too much with that. Let's not publicize that too much. Let's not make that a thing. But it's there. And I mean, yeah, I have some theological differences and doctrinal differences with some of my fellow preachers, but at the end of the day, the way I promote this book is that if you can get over the gay piece, forgiveness is a universal principle.
Right.
And so that's my goal, is to put something out there that helps people to be whole, helps people to get over their past hurt, their past offenses and all of that. And that was the goal. A side piece of that is representing LGBTQ. A side piece of that is candidly telling the craziness of a former relationship I was in. That's a side piece, and that helps draw people in from that community. But overall, the universal message is forgiveness and wholeness and healing.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you too, because like me personally, like forgiveness, and when the book you gave me, I don't know if you remember, but you wrote that in the book, and that really like it made me stop at first.
Gotcha.
Like when I first opened it and I seen it, and it was like, yeah, forgive, and I'm like, man, Like that's something that I've always struggled with in
Gotcha.
life. Is forgiving people.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's real hard. It's real hard for me. And I used to be, when I was younger, I was more immature, and I would tell people like, if you want forgiveness, go to Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, don't even come over here.
I ain't the one.
Yeah,
I ain't the one.
I don't have to forgive you. As I matured, you know what I'm saying? I stopped.
Yeah.
But it's like, what would be your like advice to someone to like not only why is forgiveness important, but how could you start to begin that process?
Got you. First of all, I think that forgiveness is so important because it's freeing. It's not as much about the other person as it is about you. I think that unforgiveness eats us up more than we realize. I think that it costs us more than we realize. I think that it affects us more than we realize. For me, I can just speak to the fact that there were some places that I didn't want to go because I know that the man that gave me HIV, you're going to be there. There were some friends that I got distant with because you all are in interaction with this man. And so because you're in interaction, I don't want to be in interaction with you. Right. And so now I'm compromising my relationships on behalf of an offense that I got with somebody else. And then just beyond that, the emotional burden of carrying that thing and replaying that thing. And when I see you, I rehearse what happened between us. And I'm always replaying that. That's traumatic to a person. Right. Trauma is just what it is. It's trauma. But when you rehearse that thing constantly, you are literally, it's like ripping the scab off of a wound. You are rehearsing and putting yourself back through it again and again and again. And so unforgiveness just costs too much. And so I started moving towards it because I just knew it would free me up. I knew it would heal me up in a lot of ways and help me get some of that weight off of me. At the same time I was diagnosed with HIV, I was diagnosed, at that time they just were calling it seizure disorder. And so that's what sent me to the hospital to begin with. I was having seizures and out of nowhere at age 29. And so went to the hospital to see what was going on. They're running test after test. They tell me about the seizures and simultaneously tell me about my HIV diagnosis. And so I started to dig at the patterns of things that were happening when I would have the seizures. Usually it'd be a high moment of stress, high moment of anxiety. And a lot of that I could attribute to the fact that I was rehearsing a lot of stuff, holding a lot of stuff in that I needed to release. Right. And so once I started doing that work to release some of that stuff, I just started feeling freer and freer and freer. And the piece, I talk about it in the book, the piece that helped me most, or the number one thing that got me on that journey, was revisiting and reestablishing who I was. Once I got to a place of, okay, you're not this hurt, little broken, little victim that has gone through this traumatic experience. You are not the sum total of all of your negative experiences. Right. You are more than that. You are a king, you're a conqueror, you're a father, you're an advocate, you're a parent, you're a community member, you're a leader. When I started to reestablish that for myself and get back to the root of that, it made me start shying away from unforgiveness because it just didn't match up. It just didn't match up. Bitter but pastor, that don't match up. Right. And that'll show up. That'll show up in the messages you preach. That'll show up in how you counsel people. That'll show up in how you engage with individuals that show up on your doorstep in need of something. If you're walking around bitter, it affects how you show up. And so I had to get to the core of who I was, and the second thing that I started doing that was revolutionary for me was I started to consider where my offender was at the time that he offended me. And I had to consider his condition. And that's like, first of all, it's not a popular thing to do. Because if you hurt me, I'm really not trying to be concerned about where you were at the time that you hurt me. If you come from the background I come from, the idea is I get you back, and I get you back better than the way you got me. Yeah. That's the background I come from. So it was a change for me to start considering where my offender was at the time that they did what they did, and the background that they had that contributed to them doing what they did. And when I started considering that, I stopped being in such an angry place with them, as opposed to I actually feel a sense of mercy towards you. Right. And when you move from that bitter place to a place of mercy, it helps make the forgiveness process a lot smoother.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. That's what I learned too. Like grace is like, once you give someone grace, it kind of like changes the whole tone. You're like,
absolutely.
You know what? You did have this and this and that. It's not an excuse,
yeah,
but
exactly.
I can understand.
It's not an excuse, but I understand.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. It's like the civilized thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
So I want to backtrack a little bit,
okay.
if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I don't think that I asked you, like, when did you decide that, like, it was your life's calling to be a pastor?
So, crazy story. I started preaching at the age of 15. I'm 35 now, so I've been at this for 20 years.
That's why you got that public speaking
thing. So I've been doing this for a number of years now. But literally, I had always been involved heavily in leadership in youth groups and things of that sort. Just always was kind of a standout kid. I hung with the in crowd, but I was the off-brand of the in crowd. And I had a dream at 14, rather. I had the dream that I was preaching at a particular church that we were holding a youth group at. And so I had told my aunt about the dream. It was her church that we were going to. And that week, that was about a Tuesday, she invited me to a revival at her church. That Friday, there was a guest speaker, a woman, I don't know where she was from. I don't know her first name. I don't know anything about her. If anybody can find her, let me know. Evangelist Gould was her name. And at the end of the service, after she got done preaching, she was calling people down for prayer, and she was praying for people individually. And when she was praying for me, she said, "Lord, touch him in his pastoral call." And I opened my eyes. I'm looking around the room like, who? No. How you know? Was you in the dream? Where? So I'm like, oh my God, so this might be real. So I go and have a conversation with my pastor at the time at Salem, which is where I grew up at that time. And so it was when I went to have the conversation with him about me preaching and told him my storyline, this stark, non-emotional, really not the most sociable individual broke down crying in the office. And I'm like, man, what is going on? Like, this is too much. And so he prays for me, and like, it was like a whirlwind. Like, we start this training, and by the time I went on a missions trip to Jamaica and at 15 and was doing some preaching over there to the young people. And when we got back here, he had me do my first sermon before the congregation. And
what was that like?
Man, it was crazy because Salem ain't no little church.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, that's a huge place.
And so it was only the second time I had spoken in front of a crowd that large. Around 15, I was the keynote for an assembly that we had at school. And there were probably roughly 1,000 folks in the auditorium at that time. So this was round 2, but it was just a little scary. It just carried a little more weight to me.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely scary. I was shaking in my boots, but from what the people say, it went well. So
that's what counts.
They say it went well. So been doing it ever since. I was licensed to preach then, licensed at 16, and then I was ordained at once it was about 22, 23. I took on my first church at 23.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. So you had your own church when you were 23?
Yeah, so I was pastor in another church in South Omaha that asked me to come and be their pastor. I was there for 2 years, and then I launched out and founded my own. And we have been around for 10 years now. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. So what kind of, y'all have a lot of community stuff that you do?
Yeah, so some of our passionate work, number one, is HIV awareness and outreach. So we do testing at the church once a week, do a lot of information giving during regular service and things of that sort in that arena. But in addition to that, we also we feed the homeless twice a month. We're a little over a year in, and we've provided almost 4,000 meals to the homeless. We are real big with the youth. We've got a community dance group that uses our facility on the lower level. So those are kind of the hot points for us. That's our passion areas. I'm trying to move towards more healing work, emotional and mental healing work to draw people in, because I think that that's an area that we've let fall between the cracks. We give everybody a spiritual antidote of what to do, but we won't always deal with that mental and emotional health piece.
Yeah, because it took me until like my mid-20s to be around like a different group of brothers that I grew up from. They were street, but they were just like the way they thought was more advanced.
Gotcha.
And it was like, something had happened, and it was like I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. And one of the brothers just recognized it, like, "You all right?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm cool," and it's like, "No." Yeah. Are you okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, it's cool.
Right.
And it's like the first, because, I'm like an 80s baby. So it's like, don't cry, suck it up. You know what I mean? And it was like, I've been doing it so much that it's like, I didn't realize, like, I'm taking out anger everywhere.
That's what we taught. That's crazy. That's another piece I talk about in the book, owning the feelings of what happened to you. Right. Like being able to sit in that and allowing that to happen, allowing it to flow out. Because, man, it's better out than in. That's for sure.
Definitely. And that's like the things that I was like attracted to. Like I said, I'm only halfway through.
Gotcha.
But it was like, I was like, okay, I can relate to this.
Yeah.
That's why, because I definitely wanted you to come just on principle.
Gotcha.
But then it was like, no, you gotta come. Like, what I'm saying?
I appreciate it.
Because that's the type of stuff that we need. And, it's like the people that actually do work in the community, and the people who just talk about doing work, like we need the people who actually do the work, because you will have more expertise. Yeah. It's like if I want to do a dinner program, I need to talk to you and build with you because you've done it. Yeah. So I think we come to the part where we got to get your your final thought, and like if you want people to reach you or where they can get the book.
All right. My final thought is that you are never the best version of yourself when you're broken. That's my final thought.
Peace.
And that it's not the person that offended you, the person that broke you. It's not necessarily their responsibility to put you back together again. It's your responsibility. And you got to do the work. And sometimes it's hard work. Sometimes it's a little easier work. But it's work that's worth it. And my goal in all of my writing is to help broken people figure out how to put some pieces back together. So they can be the best version of themselves. So that's my work, that's my passion, that's my heart, is that people would be the best version of themselves and overcome some of those past hurdles that they've had to deal with.
That's dope. Can they gotta get the book from you?
So the book is, the book is, it's on Amazon. Okay. It's on my website, darrylbrownjr.com. It is, or you can, from my website, you can either order an unsigned copy that'll come from Amazon, or you can order, if you want a signed copy, there's another link for that, and that copy will come directly from me. I literally, I feel like the hood homies with their rap tracks in the back, because I ride with the books with me. So just in case somebody say, where can I get one of them books?
Yeah, right.
I got it. I got you. They in the trunk. But I've got them with me. They're available at my church. They're available at Divine Inspirations bookstore in the Fairdale Plaza. And I'm working to get them available in a couple other bookstores as well. So that's soon to come.
That's dope. Well, hey, I want to say thank you for coming.
No problem at all.
It means a lot. you know, and I personally appreciate like the work you do in the community. Because you know we like real, that's real big. So we definitely need that, and we're proud of the stuff that you're doing, and like your transparency. You know what I mean? Like it helps a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? So that's real big. So I just wanted to say that you know it's appreciated. You know, and if you want to come back anytime, share anything, you're more than welcome. You know what I'm saying? Let us get this camera right here one time, bro. Oh, this one over here. Keep going. My brother. So y'all go out, pick up the book, you know what I'm saying? And I know some of the people who watch this show, they got problems with not minding their own personal business, right? So we're not going, I'm a firm believer in people's personal business is their personal business. But when it's a jewel to be had, then you need to pick it up. You know what I'm saying? Because forgiveness, pain, anger, these things kill us. So if you too ignorant to save yourself, then you should just go and separate yourself from us and do us a favor. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I feel. Y'all know I always keep it real. So with that, I'm going to say peace, and we'll see y'all next time.